Dice Roller Radio live here inside Staxx Lofi. I am your host, WllB. Join with me always.
Stillo, Swap City, Rottweiler. What up?
With it.
Mara Sulu, Mara representing MJ.
Shout out Dice Roller Radio.
Well, we'll let our next guest go ahead and introduce himself.
Hi.
How are you doing today? How you doing?
I'm good.
We got the legend.
Got the legend.
Am I a legend?
You are.
I tell my mom I'm legendary among the infamous.
There's 3 people that say you're legend,
Or
so I
famous
think
among the
that's all you need to...
Shit like that, yeah.
Wait, who?
Yeah, because square people don't know who the hell I am.
I mean...
You know what I mean.
But who cares?
And that's cool.
Squares?
No, I don't care. That's why it's cool to be like famous among the people that you care about. Because it's like, yeah.
It's a very modest way, to look at it.
So, I guess for me, I guess legendary for me when I think of Mike, because honestly, I've been a fan of your work for so long. And when I met Bert, the first time we were like, it was COVID time still, so we were just kind of talking on the phone. He asked me to send him a picture of like my living room, like where I was at, and I did. Mm-hmm. And then he sent me one of his, and I noticed that we had very similar aesthetic, but we also had the same exact art. And it was a lot of Mike's prints. And when I went to his place for the first time, he handed me, like, he gifted me, like, a stack of some of your prints. And I was so, like, no, like, because, I mean, I bought your art, you know? And
yeah, thank you.
It's very valuable to me. And so I was like, I can't take this. He's like, no, please take it. He's like, I have, like, these prints. Like, that's my boy.
Yeah.
And you should have these. And so I was like, wait, go back? I was like, what do you mean that's your boy? And he was like, it's one of my best friends. Like, I've known him. And so for me, it was getting to know you as a person.
Yeah.
You know, you meet people that you admire and that you consider legendary, and sometimes it's very disappointing.
Yeah, I know how that goes.
But you are such a joy to work with and be around, and I love DJing with you.
It's mutual.
Yeah, it's
that's fun.
It's so much fun, and you know, you're so great with my kids too, and
I like kids.
Yeah,
I take a lot of like to get a kid's trust really counts a lot for me. You know, I feel like kids have amazing bullshit detectors, and I'm kind of a big opposing dude, and often their parents have kind of hyped me up a little bit before I meet them. So it can take some time to break through.
And see who they really are.
But that's the thing. Even kids that take maybe, a few years to finally warm up to me, whereas they used to hide behind their mom when I'd come around, and now they're like, Mike! Like to see me, and run right over. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. That's rad. Kids rule.
I feel like I first came across your artwork like 12 plus years ago, and I just been quiet and over here in the corner just doing my thing, but always admired it. I feel like I'd seen you in like documentaries and books and shit, and just been like, what the fuck, like. Never thought I'd meet you. Definitely didn't ever think I'd meet you just on our podcast that we've been
doing a podcast. Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
I know you're like
that's podcasting though. Yeah. Yeah.
I was listening to the Mass Appeal interview you did like 9 years ago on the way over here. And I was just like, damn, like San Francisco, acid, meditation, like this was the real deal. Like I knew your artwork. I was a fan of your work, you know what I mean? Then kind of watching the interview, I was like, damn, like just like you're spiritual. But
I'm glad people look further than the artwork, because it's
and plus just knowing
it's just cool that people are interested. Yeah.
Do you feel, does that feel better for you? Like when people are interested more in who you are and why you do it versus the physical art itself?
So, sometimes I just think it's just, I have a lifestyle as an artist, and people really appreciate that and wonder how I do it. And, with that lifestyle comes choices about how you spend your time and what you spend your time and money on and all that kind of thing. So I think a lot of it just stems from people like, how is this guy pulling this off? And it's really just hours and hours of putting your head down and working.
Yeah, I think there's a Buddhist or Taoist saying it's like your practice. Like practice makes perfection. Like doing it every single day.
The path is the goal. Yeah. Is a Buddhist kind of a way of thinking about things.
Yeah, like you appreciate the path more so than like the end result.
How did the path start?
Because there really shouldn't be an end result. Like we call it meditation practice for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. That's what
every single time you're just practicing, but you're not going to get anywhere. And if you start thinking that way, that becomes an ego of its own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, you
like
start clinging to the fact that you're so good at meditation. Yeah. And you're an idiot. At that point, you blew it again. You got to come back. Yeah.
How did your I didn't mean to interrupt you, but how did your path start?
Oh, well, did you growing up Catholic? Really? I mean, that was my morality system as a kid. Some wild ass stories, and I just was like, I don't know about all this. So once I got to college, I took a world religions course, and we studied all the major religions, and I read all the major religious texts and whatnot. And the Buddhist stuff made the most sense to me. So I would go see Buddhist like lectures and stuff here and there, but it wasn't until around 2001, I would say, that I started sitting regularly with other Buddhist people. And I was mostly with the Dharma punks. They're still around. And then I guess in 2002, I started practicing at a Shambhala Center, which is a Tibetan Buddhist form in Berkeley. And that led myself and my girlfriend at the time and her daughter to move to France. And we lived at one of the Shambhala centers there in France. And were living and studying there. And we kind of got disillusioned by that place. They were arguing a lot. They were drinking a lot of wine. Felt like the lamas were kind of making fun of us. And they were, eating a lot of lamb and shit, and everybody else was eating vegetarian. This is weird. We just weren't vibing with it. I mean, God bless them. They're doing good things. But we found out that Thich Nhat Hanh was nearby his place. And he was a Vietnamese monk that got kicked out of Vietnam during the war because they were protesting the war. They were just protesting war in general. And the Vietnamese government was like, well, you got to choose a side. You're either for us or against us. And they're like, no, we're just against war. And we're like, no, you got to go. And it was his friends that lit themselves on fire. Oh. So that was like when he was really young. So he had some really remarkable things happen early in life. And he was already a monk at like 16. So luckily he was nearby. We did a retreat with him. And I think of him now as kind of my root teacher. Because just the things I learned from him were the most helpful. Like the word mindfulness. I think a lot of people hear that now, but he coined that word, and gave it definition, and that was a big thing. Like in a lot of Buddhist circles, like I like to do the Vipassana retreats where you're just sitting in silence, and I'll do that for 7 days. And you sit and you walk, for 40-minute periods. And you do some chores and stuff, but you do the whole thing in silence. But they're not really telling you what to do once you go home. Mindfulness was Thich Nhat Hanh's way of taking what you learn, we'll say on the cushion, the formal meditation practice, and how you transition that into life. So it's about kind of using that ability to focus your attention on one thing, which in Vipassana is your breath, over and over and over. Whenever I find myself thinking about something, I try to come back to my breath and concentrate on that until I get lost in thought and then come back. But then in regular life, I can use that same tool to, let's say, I'm doing the dishes. Just do the dishes. If I think about something else, come back to just doing the dishes. And in that way, you start to live like a monk, where every moment is full and in full attention. And it becomes a bit more like, on a hippie way, like, life gets better. You have a better perspective on how magic it is that it's happening at all. That your heart, for some reason, doesn't take a fucking break until it does. It's amazing that it's all happening.
Because
we
you're
totally
not,
take it for granted.
I don't mean to cut you off, but because you're not hung up on the past, you're not afraid.
That's the thing with the present moment.
The future, you're like in the now.
Right. And that's all we have, really.
I grew up very similar, like raised Catholic. You said 2002, but it was probably like around 2008, 2009 when I first came into contact with your artwork. It was like hanging in the streetwear boutique in downtown.
Cool.
I think it might have been called Future of Style or something like that. And I think it was like either Prince or Tease or something. I think I remember my cousin in San Francisco took me to Upper Playground. I don't know if you did work with them.
I did a lot, yeah.
So I feel like it was kind of like that era, like 2009.
Yeah.
And then I started taking a world religions class at City College because, and like midway through high school, I was still in Catholic school, and I was like, nah, fuck this. I gotta go. Like, I gotta explore because there's too many like hypocrites around me. So this is like really fucking with the way that I'm really like leaning into this religion. Like it's not working for me. So then I just kind of like went like more against it, I needed to like explore my mind. And it was always Buddhism that like I feel like drew me like in a lot because there was central figures, but it was more like, okay, how did the Buddha become Buddha? Like he was kind of like following his own like Tao, like his own way, you know? And then he was like sheltered from all these things. And then it was like through experiencing of like death, like sickness and like poverty that he was like, all right, I gotta go figure this out. Goes into like meditating, and you know all these things happen. You know, so the Gautama becomes the Buddha. But like, like I don't know, it tripped me out to go back to Christianity at some point and like just take like kind of Bible studies with friends, and I'd be like, okay, well we're all young, we're all trying to like figure this out, but then I started to think about those lost years of Jesus, like what he was doing, and I started to look at some of the poses he's represented as doing, even in the Catholic Church. Like, there's all these paintings of him doing very like symbolic, like
postures or hand gestures.
They call them mudras in
exactly.
Buddhism. They
even
have
like,
specific
like
meanings.
This one, like the main mudra of like a little cherub, like angel praying.
It's from the era before when people can read and write. You had to show people pictures that were symbolic.
Right.
You know?
Signs
and
stuff
so,
like that.
This is like the mudra of like which it kind of later becomes like Amen, but it's like it represents the God in me salutes the God in you. And so this whole idea of like him being the Son of God and we're all children of God, it's like we're all gods, and he's trying to say something. And like, you know, the amount of like fasting and praying and and meditating and listening to God, talking to God, and then his ability to like fast in the desert for like 40 days and like sustain like all these crazy things, and like he's going around preaching this stuff to people, but like you're kind of missing like what's happening from like where he's like 12 to like 32 or something. So I have this book of like him, and he's called like the King of Travelers. Like basically like he in the Islamic religion, he's a prophet, Isa, and he's like talked about like in the Quran and stuff, and he's like written
like
about.
The Jews think too. Yeah, you know, he was a prophet, no doubt, but not the one.
Right.
You know, bro, chill.
Yeah. But like, so basically, there's this idea that like he traveled to the East, picked up all these like Eastern philosophies, and brought it back, and then like
he wouldn't have even had to go far, really, because if Alexandria was really where it was in Egypt at the time, that's where. Because I love reading those kind of alternative takes on the Jesus story, and I like the one that posits that he probably studied at Alexandria, and that's where he met Mary Magdalene, and she was a much different person than what they portray.
That's like the first city he goes to, right? After Bethlehem, like after being
that's the thing.
born,
I can't remember specifically, but I know he was identified with the Isis and Osiris religion, which was a combination of opposite forces. So male and female was, played up and equalized, like a yin yang, but that kind of went against, if you believe the stories, that he was actually not born of a poor carpenter, that he was actually a descendant of David and Solomon of the Old Testament, which would have meant he was a royal by blood,
it's Mary whose lineage is
right,
descendant of David. I mean, they. Like,
there you go.
Names,
right.
Like
no, that's the thing. You read the same shit.
Yeah.
No, that's the thing. It's fascinating. And growing up Catholic, you're like, oh, this doesn't make a lot of sense. But then you read these other books, and you're like, oh, put the place and a time on it, and also a mentality and why this mattered and why that mattered. I love the stories that Magdalene was pregnant at the time of the crucifixion and escaped to southern France, and that she was black.
The Merovingian.
All that stuff. Oh, I love it. But again, I don't know if any of it's fucking real. But
So
it's fun to,
bottom line is, when everyone take a world's religions class.
There you go. That's the draw right there.
Everyone take a world religions because I too took a world religions class in college, so it's like
cool.
I think it definitely gives you a different perspective.
Cool that we're
I think
all
it's cool.
on that. Yeah,
like
totally.
what that class taught me was that people actually believe that there's a religion about like a flying spaghetti monster.
Anything really. That's just
That's a true thing. I thought it was a South Park episode, but no, it's real. People actually,
like
you'd be surprised. Like South Park is actually right about 98%.
Well, they're referencing real things for sure. That's the genius.
So that's why I was like, I went down the list of all the different religions, like on the world religions class, and I saw like the religion of flying spaghetti monsters. I was like, no, it's
anything
real.
can be a
religion. You
religion.
can form a nonprofit and a religion and stuff. And
they had a
it's
church of
like-
cannabis.
Sure, Church of Satan.
Fuck it.
Yeah.
Yeah, fucking the book is sativa. Fuck it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, speaking of books, the first real Buddhist text that I was attracted to was Ram Dass's "Be Here Now."
Such a trippy book.
It's a very trippy
It's
book.
all hand drawn, and
you remind me
out.
so much of your style. Sometimes,
Oh, sure.
A lot of your prints that I buy, there are a lot of
Black and white.
Black and white. A
Simple.
lot of Buddhists.
A lot of lettering. He loved to
Yes.
play with lettering and words, and that kind of comes with a lot of acid use, I think.
Yeah, Be Here Now is incredible.
It's a trippy book, and I mean, I was 17, and I was super into like the beatnik generation at that time. So I was reading a lot of Burroughs and just really getting into Kerouac.
Okay,
Yeah. I mean, my first
I
On
did
the
that
Road
too,
was
kind
the
of
first.
the set. I'll kind of stay in a genre or a lane like that. And I think I
Leary.
kind of did the same thing.
Yeah, when I started reading more of those authors, that's what kind of led me into like Hinduism, Buddhism.
Yeah.
Started like eating a lot cleaner.
Sure.
Practicing yoga. I was super young,
Yeah.
and then I was still listening to like my hardcore and my punk, and so it was like this internal battle because I grew up Jehovah's Witness. So we were very much more like 12 tribes of Israel, almost like Jewish in a sense.
Right.
But I mean, it was definitely, Buddhism and Hinduism have always been, even Taoism and Taoism.
Buddha
I
was a
find.
Hindu.
Yeah.
Just
They're all
like Jesus was
interconnected.
a Jew.
Yeah, but I
In
mean, world
similar ways,
religions was
right?
what's
Like-
really bridging it. 100%.
That's the thing, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's all
Buddha
interconnected.
built off of Hindu ideas, for sure. But he, again, it came through his experience,
Yeah.
And the Buddha was trying to create Buddhas, not Buddhists. And I kind of think Jesus was trying to create Christs, not Christians.
Like a Christ consciousness.
That's right.
Versus, like, these
Awaken
Christian,
to the connection
judgmental
of you
people.
to God.
Yeah,
That God
exactly.
is. That's like, like when a Christian says, "Oh, I'm the son of God," and people are, but if to a Buddhist or a Hindu, they're like, "Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Yes, we are all sons of God." Yes. Absolutely.
Do you guys ever
No
find
question.
yourself in conversations with people who do not believe in God or have no spiritual?
It depends on how you define God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of it
You
is
know.
subjective. That's why
that's a big word.
my interactions these days when it comes to religion, because I don't think I'm the most religious person either. And I too, again, grew up in a Catholic home. I don't really, associate too much with it, or I have my own perspectives on it, just like on a more spiritual level. I do read up on like Buddhism as well and everything, but I mean, there's people who don't really connect with it based off a lot of what you said, like with like the hypocrisy on a lot of levels, or just like the structure of like people put it all in one box where it's like the structure of it alone, like
It's the turn off.
is the turn off, and
Yeah.
they don't really see the benefits of like really what a lot of people can get from it, from an artistic value or just from like a spiritual value of just like for themselves to be a better person. They're just like, oh no, it's like it's the man, or it's just like it's a way for them to put you down and shit like that. So it's like, it's a turn off. That's my
Controlling you,
conversation.
yeah.
It's like I don't want to do anything with religion.
I just
like
don't
that.
think it's like, I think it's all like mind control to some degree, but I think like there's so many good elements. Like if you read what Jesus is quoted as like saying, like I think there's so many good positive things you can learn and take from your life and into your life, and like like act like that or behave like that, and I think it's only going to yield you like good results. But
Have you read the Gospel of Thomas? It wasn't included in the canonical Bible, and there's still kind of disputed.
The Apocrypha stuff, like
that's
see
that stuff's fascinating to me too, because it's kind of written in those Buddhist ways of these funny little phrases that really get your mind to unlock the ego and open. Yeah. You know,
there's this one quote
great metaphors
from the Gospel of Thomas that I use a lot in Rottweiler and like my clothing brand and stuff like that, because I grab like, you know, stuff from a bunch of different religions. I've grabbed stuff from the Be Here Now book.
Cool.
I mean, just like so much. Like all my friends see it and they're always kind of like, "What the fuck are you?"
Yeah, I was about to say like a lot of his pieces. I wanted to ask you too, since we're all kind of on this topic, just like how much like religion is with art, because you put a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
and I've always said it to you from the very beginning.
The camos that I bought from you.
That one's, it says it was written.
Yeah.
And it's Maktub. And I think that comes from like the book The Alchemist, which is like, I think is a really great book.
Classic.
Yeah,
such a quick read.
It is, and you could even listen to it. It'll take you like 2 hours maybe. But,
right.
But Maktub, basically, it was written. It's like it's destiny, and in that book, like it connects Islam, Judaism, and Christianity in this way that like puts you in the seat of like this young teenage boy
traveling,
who's like like going through his whole life in like the Levant, like Spain, Morocco, Egypt, back to Spain, and you're just kind of like
meeting these characters.
This is like what life would have been like type thing, you know?
Wow. That's crazy.
So I used it was written, but in the Gospel according to Thomas, I use this one quote that says, "Let him who seeks not cease seeking until he finds, and when he finds, he will be troubled, and when he is troubled, he will marvel." And it's just like,
you can apply that to life now. Like you find some shit out that you're not supposed to, but you go out and find it. Then now it's like, what do you do with it?
Mind blown.
It's mind like you're just like you sit there with it. What do you? Yeah, it's
fucks
just like
your whole shit up. Your whole perspective is flipped now.
Yeah, that's a common theme in Buddhism for sure.
That Master interview you did when you were talking about that feeling of like, you know, when the LSD hits and you're like, you know, it connects in your heart. Everything doesn't make sense in your mind. You don't know how to explain it to anyone, but there's like this powerful connectedness that's like just
that only present. You could feel. It's like you're entwined with it. Like that's,
and I get to the same place on those retreats doing the meditation. Yeah. That's why I'm a little hesitant around psychedelic experiences now, because that deeper voice is like, bro, we've been through this. Like, you're welcome here anytime. Like, because I did used to do a lot of hallucinations.
Well, sometimes people meditate to get to that space, like without even having to take.
That's
like
that.
Yeah,
well, that's the thing. Like, you can get to the same space, but it is a long, gradual process, and I think there can be some merit in giving someone a preview. Like DMT is a wonderful preview. It's only 10 minutes of an investment, pure. It just goes away. Unlike LSD, you can feel gross for hours and hours, and it can last for hours and hours.
Yeah.
But DMT will give you a little taste of what's possible on the other side, you know, of this reality.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of like docs on DMT where like,
but again, you know, and you don't want to just keep doing that and be there all the time. There's a lesson to be learned there, you know, but it's a good space because it is that interconnected space. Right. It's egoless. You come back refreshed. They show, you know, with biofeedback how healthy it is for your mind to get into meditative states, and then how good it is for the rest of your body. You know, it's all been proven.
About the mushrooms and stuff like that. Like, I think mushrms are good.
It's great medicine. It's great that it's more.
They got mushrooms
available.
and everything now. Yeah, I was about to say they got it in chocolate bars, coffee.
I ate some New Year's Eve. Just
so you could make
2 nights ago.
But with LSD,
making
the
pills.
come down can be as ugly as like the come up is good. You know what I mean? Like
LSD is an investment, and that was my favorite mode of getting it there.
Travel.
What do you think of the term microdosing?
I think it's cool. You know, again, if it's showing benefit at a slight dose, that's great.
Yeah.
If it's, I don't think you need to blast the fuck off. Although I do think you need to blast the fuck off at some point.
Yeah.
Like if you're just microdosing and you're talking about, you know what the fuck's up, you don't know shit. Like take 5 dried grams. Do the heroic dose.
Like go ahead and take 8 grams of
and then let's talk.
And then microdose.
That's the thing. In the end, you got to eat the whole fucking chocolate bar, homie. Work your way up to it. But at some point, it's like weeds like that too. You know, at some point, fucking go for it. Like, just go nuts. Like, to where you don't even know what time it is or what day it is or where you are or what your name is. Blast off, but don't just stay there. Learn something from that and then come back. Ayahuasca is that way. It's intense, but it's a practical psychoactive tool.
I don't think anyone says learn something from, like, that's like the first time I heard, like, yo, like, learn something from your
I always
trip.
went with that but I always went with that intention. That should be.
Like, all trips, you just go in there like, I'm just trying to trip out. Like, I'm just trying to get fucked up. And then you're there and you're just like, what the fuck? And then,
like, was always like the psychedelic astronaut. Like, what are we discovering today?
Yeah.
Right.
No, but like, you get lost, but you don't really see that you're learning something about yourself in that moment. You're just like, I'm just here in this space. I've never been here. I'm lost. Like, my mind's like out of nowhere.
Or some
like,
people
I'm
go in it with fear.
Yeah.
And then they have the worst experience because they're so locked into trying to control the situation.
And that's what's nice now is you can, like, even with the mushrooms, you can ease somebody in now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm kind of doing that with my girlfriend now. She did mushrooms for the first time the other night, and we just took a little bit, and every hour I would ask her to stand up with me, and we would stretch and be like, all right, tell me how you're feeling.
Yeah.
Really try to notice the subtleties. Does anything feel weird? And she's like, yeah, it feels really weird, but it's hard to describe, like, what's weird. I'm like, perfect. Like, this is easing into it.
Yeah.
So then there's various levels of that, to the point where you don't know if your eyes are open or closed because you're in a pure hallucinatory state. And how are you? Who are you? Where are you? What are you in that space?
I'll tell you my biggest...
And you got to not freak out.
100%.
Hang in there.
My biggest meditative state was my childbirth. Because I had...
that makes sense.
I had I had midwives.
All the chemicals.
No, I had midwives. I had
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
your
but
own
my whole body. Yeah,
that's what I understand, especially from using a midwife versus the hospital, because they fill you up with all these chemicals to get you through the birth in a hospital that interfere with the bonding between the baby and the mother, because your chemicals are changing rapidly in that moment too. And that's such a crucial moment.
It was so intense.
I've heard that.
Yeah, my wife had an epidural because she had the C-section. So that's a whole different process.
Yeah,
it was just
right.
It was just a very. I had to control my mind in order to get through the process because it was a pain that was just so overwhelming, and so I prepared myself mentally before it because I really wanted it to do it that way. And it was just, focusing on my breath for a certain amount of time, and then for my first one I needed it to be completely dark. I couldn't handle sound. I needed quiet silence. I wanted to be in the water with my second. I didn't care about sound. I was okay with the day. I wanted to just kind of be relaxed. But my body was always telling me, and I forgot where I was, what I was doing, what time it was, who was around me.
Right, another level of consciousness.
I went on a completely different, and then you just zoom back into that moment, and it's just bliss.
That's so sick.
It's so crazy.
Dudes will never know.
We'll never know that shit. I don't.
Fucking lames.
We suck, bro.
But there's so many natural states of meditation, I guess is my point.
And that's what a Buddhist would tell you too. Even Thich Nhat Hanh talked to us a lot about mindfulness of body and exercise. Anything where you're really pushing your body, where you can't really think about anything. I always thought of riding the fixed gear bicycles with no brakes in traffic, like in San Francisco. Yeah, it's so dangerous. And it's going so fast that you can't think about anything. You can't focus on anything or you're fucked. You have to stay wide open. And in that way, you zoom through super dangerous shit, and it's a flow state, just like yoga, But that's an important thing where people are like, oh, I don't know how to meditate. No, your body knows how to meditate. There's times when you do it. When you're having sex, that's a form of meditation. Or fucking should be. Hopefully. You know what I mean? But it is on some level.
Yeah. You're concentrating.
That's a big one, though, kind of. Because, like...
Well, there's moments of consciousness, but I feel like that's meditation, too, because you're in and out.
It's just... I know from speaking with women that men can sometimes be way too self-centered in sex, you know, and just kind of that's not so meditative to me, you know. Which you know, it's one of those things.
I personally
it's not always
can't speak
meditative.
on that. We good on that aspect. But I can see how that, mindful sex.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%.
It should be a sacred act. You know, I mean, it's the act that creates life. You know, that's way underrated. You know, but again, it's if you look for cues about how to act sexually from the world around us, it's so shallow and just wrong and weird.
I think there's like a supportive selfishness. It's like, what are you selfish about? What am I selfish about? Let's be selfish together for this time.
I think there's different types of moments for sexual experiences. Like I think there are moments where you can have the awakened spiritual, you know, love making, you know, experience, and then you can have the other meditative sex, which is, you know, I know what you like and you know what I like, and giving you pleasure is my form of meditation. And of you know, showing
trying to find common ground though when you're able to like blend the two in there somehow, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And then I think that's where the concentration comes from, where you're just like, how am I able to like perform and do X, Y, and Z while also like attaining to this other person who's trying to get to X, Y, and Z.
I think he means in like we're living in such a over sexualized time.
Oh, without doubt.
That
it's just one of those things.
It's very different, you know, like.
Well, just like music, it's like the microwave era, you know, like everything just has to be like, you know, quick and just like to a T.
I definitely think it's a lot more male focused.
Very anti-microwave.
Are you anti-microwave?
You're anti-microwave.
I'm super anti-microwave. I had we had bratwurst and like black eyed peas. That's like my mom's.
You can't cook a bratwurst.
No, that's like my. No. I mean, they were okay. So basically, that's like my mom's like New Year's like tradition type thing. Like New Year's Day, that's what she'll make. Like black eyed peas, rice, and bratwurst. So she cooks it all fancy and nice and shit. But then like there's always leftovers. So this morning I was like, there's no way I'm heating that shit back up in the microwave. Like I threw that shit in the toaster oven. So I fucking put that shit in there for like 10 minutes just to warm it up. But
yeah, I prefer.
They were like looking at me like, what the fuck are you doing? I'm like, this was already fully cooked. Like I'm just fuck a microwave. They're like, nah, like a microwave is pretty much. They're like, no, we listened to this and that about how like microwaves aren't bad for you.
They poison.
I can already hear them laughing 100 years from now, like microwave, like fucking idiots.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, man! Oh, that's smart.
My mom said some shit like, "Oh, a microwave is kind of like the sun, but like without the ozone layer." I'm like, "Yeah, that's the shit that causes cancer."
We'll be on fifth.
You described it perfectly.
We'll be on air fryers now, bro. We're on 5th generation air fryers at that time.
I'm gonna say the same shit about fucking canola oil, but fuck it, I kind of like that shit.
Fucking humans, right?
Yeah.
So I am really, really, really super honored to be able to be sharing the stage with you at Mind Power every month. Cool. And these are the types of conversations, though, that I feel like we find ourselves having even at the venue.
Yeah.
Going off Bert's point, like it's.
Well,
really,
usually I'm pretty high.
Yeah.
So it's gonna gravitate towards some weird shit pretty quick. I think.
I'm gonna let you know. This is all I ever talk about anyway.
Yeah.
Fucking religion and microwaves.
Yeah. Gospel of Thomas.
Once we started getting into religion, I was like looking at him. I was like, "Fuck,
here we go.
Here we go."
Yeah.
Episode 69. You couldn't do one episode without fucking talking about religion.
It's 2023, first episode. Oh, here we go, religion.
I remember my son's dad was, his friend was like, yo, does Mara have any friends? Like, what up? Hook me up. And he's all, why do you want to meet Mara's friends? He's all they do is sit around talking about the moon and crystals. He's like,
Crystals. Yo.
And I was like, yeah, that's true.
What's wrong with crystals?
Yeah. There's worse shit to talk about.
100%.
There's worse shit.
At least we have interests. Just wanted to quickly get into, like, is there anything else that you're working on right now that is coming up that people can, you know, kind of tune into? I know, you know, we do sell a lot of Mike's posters at Mind Power.
Yeah.
I'm always making posters. That's kind of the foundation of my earnings month to month. So I always have posters. And at the online, they're usually $50-$60, but if you come and see me in person, like at Mind Power, they're only $20.
Yeah,
regardless of what it is.
So you can come and pick up.
Super deal.
A bunch of posters, lots of really cool art.
Yeah.
To get you.
What's your website?
MikeGiant.com, and I'm OG Mike Giant on Instagram.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna ask, you got any socials too? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you screen print a lot of stuff locally? Or like
I've used the same printer in Oakland for over 20 years. My buddy Nat Swope, and maybe I guess it was last year I did a residency at the Haight Street Art Center. They're trying to keep the history of the psychedelic poster era alive.
Yeah, yeah.
And they have a printing room up there, so I've been able to hire the master printer there for a few that I did recently.
Oh.
Yeah, totally. Man. But it's mostly them. And I do prefer kind of to work with local silkscreen printers so I can just pick them up in person in my car and save on shipping fees and also support the local printers. But I haven't found a good poster printer down here.
Heights. I've been printing on my
here we
for
go.
Like 6 years, bro.
The connections are happening.
Your work, you're a legend. So
yeah,
anytime
I'd
you need anything, let me know.
Try it out. Yeah, for sure. Hell yeah. But that's the main thing.
Music wise, fuck, you're a DJ too. Like, okay, man.
Yeah.
Now we're going to the moon.
DJ.
We're going to the moon right now. What record are you taking with you? It doesn't have to be one you see. Just...
Let's see. What would I say today? The soundtrack to Dune.
Okay.
Dune,
my cousin just
the movie
the
Dune,
HBO movie,
the original one.
Or the original. Okay, I was about to say the new one. I kind of like the new one too.
The new one's cool
the older
too.
one has got
it is a nice
vibe to it. Yeah,
interesting interpretation of the same story.
Yeah,
really cool.
My cousin for Christmas, my older cousin, he was the one that put me on the Star Wars. He's like the older OG to me. He gifted my nephew a copy, like a first edition copy of Dune. Like the hardback book, and then he gave me a copy of like a 3-book Jules Verne compilation.
Oh,
for
fun!
My kid.
Jules Verne.
So
I read that as a kid too.
So,
yeah, that's classic
dope,
shit.
Man. I gotta check out the soundtrack.
The soundtracks are always cool.
I collect a lot of soundtracks. Totally.
That's awesome. Well, it was a pleasure. And I can't wait to talk to you off the mic and off the camera and everything, bro. And I'm definitely gonna pull up the Mind Power.
Yeah, please. It's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate you having me on here.
Dice rolling motherfucking radio.